The year was 2010. It was a cold, crisp day in Pensacola, Florida. Over 7,000 die-hard race fans packed into Five Flags Speedway, the site for one of the most premier late model stock car races in the country. Since its running in 1968, it has attracted some of the biggest names in stock car racing. Legends of NASCAR have competed and won at the historic race. Darrell Waltrip, Donnie Allison, Ted Musgrave, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, among many other short track heroes that have been able to conquer this abrasive racetrack with characteristics that only reward the best of the best. 42 drivers have won this race. However, there are 2 drivers that stand out from the rest. Now, racing has been stereotypically been known as a man's sport. While there have been a small handful of women to enter into the world of car racing, the results have been met with little success, although there were exceptions. The late Cara Hendrick was a rising star in sprint car racing before her life was tragically cut short in a crash in El Cajon, California at just the age of 22, and arguably the most successful female driver in Michèle Mouton from France, but her path to victory was in rally car racing, winning 4 races and finishing runner-up in points in 1982. What about stock cars though? Well, let's go back to those 2 drivers that I mentioned. In 1994, the annual Snowball Derby was about to commence. Drivers like Bobby Gill, who was the defending race winner, was among many of big racing names headlining the event. There was one, however, that really no one was watching for. Tammy Jo Kirk, 32 years old from Dalton, Georgia, was in the race with no one picking her to have a good run at the very least. But starting in 10th, she survived the chaos as this was the first race to have walls that surround the racetrack. Even though 6 cars were running at the finish, she was the one that beat some of the best in the country. Unfortunately, her time in NASCAR wasn't all that memorable, competing in only 32 races in the Truck Series and only having a best finish of 11th and 15 Xfinity races in 2003, not being able to crack the top 20. But let's go back to that list of Snowball Derby winners. Johanna Long. Johanna Long was a hometown favorite, growing up in the same city as Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola on May 26, 1992. Like many race car drivers, she learned how to drive before really learning anything else. She wanted to be like her father who raced late models, and at the age of 5, she began her path to racing, going from karts at 5 to legend cars at 8 and eventually late models herself at 12. In 2009, she won the Sunoco Gulf Coast Championship, a super late model series that rotated between racing at Five Flags Speedway and Mobile International Speedway in Alabama. It ran for 6 seasons and was home to showcase drivers with mega talent like Bubba Pollard, Daniel Hemrick, and 2020 Cup champion Chase Elliott. And this was no easy series for her to win. She went toe-to-toe with Alabama's Augie Grill, who won 2 straight Snowball Derbies in 2007 and 2008. She won 3 races that year, 2 at Five Flags and 1 at Mobile, and was able to beat Bubba Pollard and her championship rival Augie Grill by just 3 points. That same year in 2009, she sat on the pole for the Snowball Derby, but would end up finishing 18th with Kyle Busch taking the win. But her career would get some eyeballs in the NASCAR world. In 2010, she would get the call to run the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series with Billy Bailu Motorsports in her first race at Indianapolis Raceway Park, to driving a respectable 17th place finish. She would race 2 more times for that team before competing in 5 more with her family team, Panhandle Motorsports. Her big highlight was qualifying 9th in the Fall Texas race, but that didn't go all that well. At the start of the race, she didn't get a good launch and made contact with Ricky Carmichael. She would end up getting a tire cut from that and crash in turn 4. Not even 2 laps in, and her night was done. But to qualify that high in that truck shows that she had something and would prove it once again at her home track. In her 3rd Snowball Derby appearance, she was still looking for her first top 10 finish, and once again for the 2010 running of the race, the field was stacked. Among the names competing were Bubba Pollard, Chase Elliott, Grant Enfinger, and Augie Grill, her championship rival. She started 4th in the race and took the lead from Ryan Lawler on lap 29 for 10 laps before giving up the lead. But this is a Snowball Derby, so of course there was going to be some carnage. Of the 37 entries in the field, all but 11 were still running at the end of the race. A caution came out with 21 laps to go. Donnie Wilson, who led 33 laps, was up front. Behind him was Landon Castle, and in 3rd was Johanna Long. Long, who pitted for new tires on lap 290, restarted 10th and worked her way up to be in a position to claim victory. On the restart, Castle got underneath Wilson to take the lead, with Long falling behind, and 1 lap later, Long decided to unleash her inner intimidator and spun Castle.
Holy cow, can she get around Castle? whistle. She puts a bumper. She turns him. Caution is out. Caution is out.
While it was indeed controversial, Johanna Long also had a really fast car. She would go on to lead the final 14 laps, including overtime, to claim victory, becoming only the second woman in history to win the event. At just 18 years old, her win gained major publicity within the NASCAR world. Unfortunately, it didn't result in any big-time funding. For 2011, she competed in 17 starts in the Truck Series for her family team. Not much, however, came in terms of results, except for a great run at Texas once again when she finished 11th. She had some great qualifying runs, which showed that there is something in that driver. She just needed an opportunity to get in some good equipment. For 2012, she would get an opportunity to run in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for ML Motorsports. It wasn't a great team by any means and was not able to run the full schedule, but it was an opportunity for her at a higher level. Her 21 starts that year don't tell the full story. Even though she didn't finish in the top 10, she had some really good runs, especially at Richmond. She was running competitively in the top 6 in equipment that should be nowhere near the front and passing drivers in top level rides like Elliott Sadler, Kurt Busch, and defending champion Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and was even getting some praise from drivers like Jeff Burton, saying that she deserves to be in a top 10 ride. Unfortunately, most of her good runs ended up in the garage due to crashes or equipment failures. But you would think that these runs that showcase how talented she is at just 20 years old, and her being a woman in a male-dominated sport, you would think that she would have sponsors lining out the door, right? Unfortunately, there was another female driver that was taking up all the spotlight.
Driver has been the biggest story this week here in the Nationwide Garage. 5'2", 100-pound Danica Patrick has been swarmed by media and fans alike.
Danica-Mania had just entered NASCAR and was kicked into high gear when Danica made her Cup Series debut and full-time Xfinity ride. All the talk and press always followed Danica. Now, to be fair to Danica, this is not her fault. She was just a product of what people in the media were talking about. It's not her fault so many people wanted to talk about Danica. However, if you notice during race broadcasts during Danica's inaugural season in 2012, they would talk about her even for things that had nothing to do with her. Danica was like that newborn baby that everyone wanted to see, while Johanna was viewed as the oldest child that was just someone you acknowledge every once in a while. Head to head with Danica in 21 starts, Danica beat her 14-7. But you also have to factor in that the fact that Johanna, in the equipment she was in compared to what Danica drove, championship equipment at Junior Motorsports, the fact that Johanna held her ground at all was impressive to put it lightly. 8 times she finished in the top 20 in 2012, and the following year in 20 starts with the same team, she finished in the top 20 10 times. But unfortunately, after that year, at just the age of 21, her NASCAR career would be over. After that, ML Motorsports was forced to close at year's end. She would compete in one more Xfinity race for Obaika Racing, which would have made NASCAR Lola look like the next Ferrari team. Yes, they were that bad. Like, Obaika was way worse than NASCAR Lola. At least NASCAR Lola was an actual race team and not a scam. But anyways, she was only able to salvage a 27th place run. She would run sporadically in certain late model races, while her life was getting interesting off track. Shortly after her time at ML Motorsports, she began a relationship with former Kyle Busch Motorsports engineer and fellow short track driver Hunter Robbins, who is a 2-time Snowflake 100 race winner. In 2016, they got married and they have 2 boys. However, it's still unfortunate to see how her career played out the way it did. She's definitely on a short list of underrated what-ifs in NASCAR, especially in a male-dominated sport where female drivers come far and few between. Johanna definitely has something to offer, but luckily for us, we get to witness some talented women coming up through the ranks of not just NASCAR, but in racing in general. And hopefully we will get to witness a female driver once again rise up and take over the top spot on the racing world to show that racing is not just for the boys.